Good morning from Yellowstone National Park. Look at that sunrise. Okay, but before we get started on what we're doing today, I totally would be remiss to not tell you the story about Rockefeller and his association with the Grand Tetons. I know I kind of briefly touched on it, but I'm going to elaborate just a little bit. So, Mr. and Mrs. Rockefeller came out and visited Grand Teton. It wasn't called that at the time. And they were like, wow, this is beautiful. And Mrs. Rockefeller said, we cannot let them destroy this. We have to preserve this. And Rockefeller said, happy wife, happy life. And so in the late 1920s, early 30s, he began buying up property through his Snake River Land Company. This was all done anonymously, okay? And so he bought around 35,000 acres in that first core property purchase that he did, which cost roughly $1.4 to $1.5 million. I'm sure some of y'all can figure out how much money that would be in today's money. Okay, but then the locals figured it out, because what was to take place was Rockefeller was going to buy this land and give it to the government for the government to turn into a national park to protect. Well, the locals got wind of what was happening and they were livid. Okay, they were super mad. This argument / battle / discussion / whatever went on for 20 years, y'all. 20 years. That's a long time to argue about something. But anyways, finally, in 1942, Rockefeller said, if you don't want this land, I'm selling it to investors. And this forced Franklin D. Roosevelt's hand, and he declared it a national monument, opening the door for the park boundaries to be set in 1950. So, while we may all have our different opinions about what we think about the Rockefellers, I do think that what they did with the Grand Tetons was instrumental in preserving the land and helping it become the amazing, untouched park that it is today. Okay. Enough about the Tetons. Let's talk about where I'm at today. So I am at the very first national park, Yellowstone. And I cannot wait to show you all of the things. But first, let's talk a little bit about Yellowstone. On March 1st, 1972, President Grant signed the Yellowstone National Park Protection Act into law. This officially designated Yellowstone as a national park, preserving more than 2 million acres of land for the benefit and enjoyment of the people. Well, how did this even come about? So after several scientific expeditions exploring the Yellowstone region in the late 1860s and early 1870s, explorers, scientists, and artists shared reports and images of its extraordinary geysers, hot springs, waterfalls, and wildlife. People feared that private developers would exploit that area for tourism or mining, so Congress proposed setting it aside for the public. And that was probably the last time that Congress worked or did anything of value. So while Grant was hugely instrumental in it becoming a park, Teddy Roosevelt shows up almost 30 years later, and his efforts and dedication to conservation helped ensure that Yellowstone and many other natural areas would be preserved for future generations. Roosevelt was an avid outdoorsman who believed that America's forests, wildlife, and natural landscapes should be protected from overuse and development. During his presidency, from 1901 to 1909, he greatly expanded the nation's conservation efforts. He established 5 national parks, created 18 national monuments, and protected millions of acres of public land by creating national forests. Okay. That is enough talk about Teddy. We'll come back to him a little bit later. But let's talk about where we are today. We are at Yellowstone National Park. Since we're talking some specifics of the park, let's talk about the map. The park is laid out in a massive figure 8 loop known as the Grand Loop Road. It is 142 miles long and connects nearly all of the park's major geothermals, canyons, waterfalls,
and it acts as a main artery for the entire 2.2 million acre park. Now, to access that loop, you have 5 distinct entrances: the north, northeast, east, south, and west, all of which feed into this big figure 8. While that sounds overwhelming, navigating is actually really easy when you divide the layout into 2 primary loops, the upper loop and the lower loop. The lower loop has mostly geothermals and canyons. It has the highest concentration of famous hydrothermals and dramatic geographic landmarks like Old Faithful, Grand Prismatic, Yellowstone Lake, Grand Canyon of Yellowstone, and the North Geyser Basin. The upper loop is more historic and wildlife valleys. So it has older historic districts, dramatic mountain scenery, really wide valleys for viewing animals. This includes the Mammoth Hot Springs, Lamar Valley, and Tower Fall.
If you're going to be in the park, I would highly recommend Guide Along. It is a self-guided audio tour that covers the entire park. He will tell you some of the best places to stop off. He'll also tell you which places are not that great, especially if you're on a time crunch. It is by far one of the best things that I did download to help guide me through the park. However, it is recommended to download the app and the guide before you enter the park.
You guys are in for a big surprise. As soon as this fog clears just a tiny bit more, and you're about to see it, it's so great. And it's going to be our first animal sighting of the trip.
Hitting my brakes right here. These guys are part of the central herd. This is a smaller group of bison that consists of about 1,100 to 1,300 bison, and they like to spend their time in Hayden Valley and or near Firehole Geyser Basin, which is where we are close to right now. It's the Firehole Geyser Basin. And these guys are having the best morning, just eating along until the big bad truck comes along and scares them away. You'll see it in a minute.
Yellowstone is one of the most geologically active places on Earth.
It is absolutely incredible. So today we are going to focus on a lot of the geothermal features. So we're going to be talking about geysers and hot springs and mud pots and fumaroles. Say that fast 3 times. But all of these things are a result of the park's volcanic origins. That's right. Did you say what? Yellowstone was a volcano? It has something to do with a volcano? But it doesn't look like a volcano. Yes, I said what I said. But let's go back in time. So millions of years ago, Yellowstone formed over a hotspot, which is a deep area within the Earth's mantle where unusually hot rock rises towards the surface. As the North American tectonic plate slowly moved over this stationary hotspot, magma, that colorful stuff inside of volcanoes, magma builds up beneath the crust. This led to a series of enormous volcanic eruptions, the most recent occurring about 640,000 years ago. So no one needs to rush out of the park immediately, okay? It's been a minute since this happened last. But the last super eruption was so massive that it emptied a large underground magma chamber. As the chamber collapsed, it created a huge depression in the Earth's surface called a caldera, which is now the foundation of Yellowstone National Park. So while the volcano is still active, scientists do carefully monitor it, and there are no signs of any imminent major eruption. So again, no one needs to rush out of the park.
So now that we got some basics of why Yellowstone can be so hot, let's talk about the geothermals. So the magma chamber beneath Yellowstone continues to heat the groundwater that seeps into cracks and fractures in the Earth's crust. This interaction between heat, water, and rock creates the rock's famous geothermal features. Like all of this steam that you guys have been looking at, a lot of that is due to the geothermal activity that takes place in this specific basin. And here are our friends again. So dash cam time is over, and now we get to see the good stuff. If you're wondering if those little dots that you see, those little shadows out there, if those are bison, they are. These two needed a nap after seeing that many bison this early in the morning. And we have officially made it to our first destination of the morning, Old Faithful Geyser. Why is it called Old Faithful? Well, because it shoots off about 17 times a day. And the times average anywhere between 60 and 110 minutes. And this all depends on the previous eruption. So if it was a 1.5 minutes or 5-minute eruption, then that determines when Old Faithful will erupt again. That water can be anywhere from 106 to 184 degrees. What you are looking at is the geyser basin that is out beside Old Faithful. Okay, as we're cruising out into this basin, let's talk about the 4 main types of geothermal features. 1, geysers. Geysers are hot springs that periodically erupt with jets of hot water and steam. Yellowstone contains about half of the world's active geysers, including the one just right over there, Old Faithful. Number 2, hot springs. Hot springs form when heated groundwater rises slowly to the surface without becoming trapped. They often display brilliant colors caused by heat-loving microorganisms called thermophiles, along with minerals dissolved in the water. Our third one is mud pots. Mud pots are acidic hot springs with limited water. The acidic water breaks down surrounding rocks into fine clay, creating bubbling pools of hot mud. Their thick, muddy appearance depends on the amount of water available. Last but not least are fumaroles. These are also known as steam vents. Fumaroles are the hottest geothermal features in Yellowstone. In these areas, there's very little water, so the heated groundwater quickly turns to steam and escapes through openings in the ground. I think it's time to talk about what these colors mean. So in geyser land, things are opposite. So when you look at this pretty blue here, you think, wow, that must be cool. Not in geyser land. In geyser land, that is actually the hottest something can actually be. So the deep blue like that is considered above 165 degrees, which means it can be intense or lethal heat. Why is it so blue? It's because it's too hot for microbial life. So the water is completely clear and very deep. This river right here is the Firehole River, and a lot of the geysers run off into this specific river. What that means is that the temperature of this river is increased because of that extra input from the geysers. So it can be anywhere from 75 to 86 degrees in the summertime. Okay, so remember when I was telling you how geyser land is opposite land? So what is blue is hot. So whenever we think of things being hot, we think that they're red. Well, in geyser land, the red is the coolest temperature-wise, and it is below 131 degrees. This pump geyser right here is going to give y'all a baby show. Look at him! He's feeling spicy this morning about something. This guy gets a little bubbly, but not too excited. He's just a sponge geyser after all. Are you starting to ask yourself what all these different color things are on the ground by these geysers or even out here like this? So these are what are called bacterial mats. And that sign we just passed says, do not touch the bacterial mats, because we have to tell people these things. Anyways, bacterial mats actually help the geyser. So they help a geyser primarily with building and sealing its plumbing system, which allows the geyser to maintain the high pressure required to erupt. So without these microbes that look like orange creamsicle, delicious. Without these microbes, many geysers would lose structural integrity or degrade into passive, quiet, hot springs. That's why you don't touch the bacterial mats. You will notice that if there's a lot of steam coming towards me, I try to move in a different direction to get a better shot. Some of this is to protect Ozzy's eyeball and to not give myself a steam facial. And this little guy, look at him showing off for y'all. Look at that. So this right here, this bubbly right here, that is this one's show, because here in just a few seconds, it's about to be really still again. Yes, here's where my morning derailed. So I was hustling to get up to the observation point because I wanted to see Old Faithful erupt from there because they say it's awesome. Well, guess what? I stayed too long at this geyser trying to get him to erupt, and he never did. But I really liked this geyser for whatever reason. His name is the Solitary Geyser, and he was just pretty. I thought he was just really pretty, and it said he erupts like every, I think it was like 4 to 7 minutes on this one. And I was like, oh, okay, well, cool. So I waited and I waited and I waited, and then another couple came by and I talked to them and I waited some more, and he never erupted, and I was so sad. But he was real pretty to look at. This is when I found out that I was almost to the observation point, as well as Old Faithful had just erupted like 5 minutes ago. And I was like, are you kidding me? So I missed it, but I got to see this little marmot. Okay, so let's talk about the critters. Remember on Teton Day 2 when I was like, oh, this little marmot is eating an apple? He's a chipmunk, okay? I got the guide out because I was misled by somebody on a trail. But this guy, he's 100% a marmot. And look at him eyeballing us, y'all. He was just staring us down. He was like, are you looking at me? Because I'm looking at you. Oh, we're going to look at each other. And this went on for a while. And I met the nicest couple from Wisconsin. So I just stood there and chatted with them while we watched this marmot watch us until he got bored and ran away. And this is what the view from the observation deck looks like without Old Faithful erupting. There are so many geysers to see in all of those little walkways. I showed you some of them, but there's still more. But we took off to the Fairy Falls parking lot so we could go to the Grand Prismatic overlook. This is a little geo that I saw on my way to the Grand Prismatic, and it's beautiful. Remember what I was saying about opposite land? This little guy is hot. I mean, hot. Don't get near it. Okay, if you look off to the right, you can see the steam coming off from the geothermals in the ground. I am going to show y'all another picture of this a little bit later. So kind of lock that into your mind what that looks like right now. And we made it. Here's the Grand Prismatic. The blue is 188 degrees. The yellow is 160. The orange, 149. And the brown and red are under 131 degrees. Definitely meaning that things in Geyserland are definitely backwards. And this is just the steam coming off from around that area as I'm walking to the Fairy Falls. So this hike up to the Fairy Falls is approximately 5 miles round trip. Yeah, I didn't check into that before I started walking it, but okay. The pines are valued for their straight, tall trunks in uniform thickness. Native Americans used them for structural support in building teepees and lodges. That's how they got their name. There's also a section of the lodgepole pine forest that was famously burned during the 1988 Yellowstone fires. And here she is, Fairy Falls. This is one of the tallest waterfalls in the park. It's approximately 200 feet and it plunges off of the Madison Plateau into Fairy Creek. This was the falls where I met the super nice couple from Pittsburgh, and they let me hike all the way back down the trail with them. And this right here, this bridge, I don't think that this bridge is OSHA approved because it is literally falling apart. But this is the only way to get across to Fairy Falls. Now, remember that photo I was telling you guys about earlier? Notice there's zero steam out there now, like all gone. I need y'all to focus on that bridge that's right back there. That's the little walkout to go to Kepler Cascades. And it was great. This overlook is definitely not for those people that are afraid of heights. I even had a small moment where I was like, I don't know about this. And I'm not scared of very many things, but I was a little shy to get to the edge of this here in just a minute. Right here, if you're scared of heights, close your eyes. Yikes! That's looking down. And you can see the water way down there rushing along. It was great. I thought the colors were magnificent. It really was a great little stop. I really enjoyed this one. And I thought for some perspective, y'all needed to see these trees. And then there's Isa Lake. This is really interesting. So Isa Lake is on both sides of the road. The story is it is the only natural lake on Earth that drains into two different oceans backwards. Why is this? It sits on the continental divide. Because the lake straddles this exact ridgeline, it has two outlets that flow in completely opposite directions during peak snowmelt. I mostly just like the little lily pads. I didn't know she had a big story to her. So let's go ahead and talk about that continental divide that we were just discussing. So think of it like the roof line of a house, only it's of North America. So if you drop water on the roof of the house at the peak, it's going to flow in two opposite directions. And that's exactly what the continental divide does. Water that falls on the west side eventually flows into the Pacific Ocean, and water that falls on the east side eventually flows into the Atlantic Ocean or the Gulf. And we have arrived at West Thumb Geyser Basin. So what you see is that big beautiful body of water out there. was Lake Yellowstone or Yellowstone Lake, whichever way you want to do it. These are the Thumb paint pots, and I thought they were so cool. Look at the different colors. I thought this spring was just beautiful. I love the blue ones. They are just so pretty, but look at that one spicy little neighbor over here. He's so little, but he is just giving it his all and having the best time doing it. I loved it. I thought the bacterial mats on this one were just so pretty. I love the orange bacterias for whatever reason. I think it's because I love orange creamsicles. It's so delicious. So let's talk about why the West Thumb Geyser Basin is so cool. Well, for one, is its volcanic story. So roughly 174,000 years ago, a massive localized volcanic eruption caused the ground to collapse, creating a smaller crater, the West Thumb caldera, right inside the main giant Yellowstone caldera. The crater eventually filled with water to form the western bay of Yellowstone Lake, meaning you're walking on the edge of a sunken volcano. Okay, these next two massive hydrothermal pools, the Abyss pool and the Black pool, look at how beautiful these are. So, well, you're at the Abyss right now, but look at that. It is so amazing. So the Black pool is famous among scientists because it used to be cool enough to host dark brown black microbial mats. And in 1991, an underground shift caused the pool's temperature to spike violently to near boiling, killing the dark bacteria and instantly transforming the pool into a clear, radiant, glowing blue. Speaking of wild, crazy shifts and such of the things, so the hydrothermal system does not stop at the shoreline, okay? Dozens of active geysers and hot springs live entirely underwater. I loved where you could see that water from the little spring or the thermal that was over there running out into the Yellowstone Lake. I loved this little one. He's going to be somebody someday, but he was just up there just bubbling, doing his best, and I thought he was really cute because even the little ones need some love too. Okay, it is story time. So, so back in the day, early pioneers and fishermen discovered they could catch cutthroat trout in a freezing lake, spin their fishing rod around without unhooking the fish, and drop it straight into the boiling spring water to cook it instantly. They dropped it down into there and they called it cooking on the hook. And it was one of my favorite stories of the day that my guide along guy told me, which is why you've got to download him, because he's going to tell you all the awesome stuff you need to know on these adventures. Look at the steam coming off of there. I bet that was a treat, man. It is my understanding that the Park Service does not allow you to do that anymore. This is the Bluebell Spring, and for whatever reason, I could just not get a good shot of this one. Then I cruised over to my final stop of the day, which was the fountain paint pots. And I'm so glad I saved it for last. As my day progressed, I was really realizing that I had a new strange fondness of bacteria. It kind of made me go, what? But it's so pretty. And I love how they help these guys be who they need to be. And I think that's beautiful. I thought this was a great representation of the colors and what they mean.
in opposite land, right? So you've got that really beautiful blue in the middle, and you know it's hot because it's got the steam coming off of it, but then it also has the coldest of temperatures on the outskirts. And we got us a mud pot. If you look closely, you can see it bubbling. I loved it. It was so great. And this guy, he doesn't get super spicy. He just gets a little playful. If you look down in the dark spot at the bottom where there's kind of like, looks like a hole, you can see water shooting up. I did zoom in a little bit so you could try to see it, but he was a little hard to see. This one was just beautiful in a strange way. And this thermal right here was a great way to end the day because he was just showing off for the crowd and didn't care. Not sure if he had some unusual activity or what was going on, but there was a ranger standing down here by him, so not exactly sure what that meant. Maybe he just was there for safety purposes, or maybe Spasm was having a couple extra spasms he doesn't normally have. I don't know. But it was fun to look at, right? Look at how pretty he is. Hee hee. Okay, bye. I think what is fun is he's inspiring everybody in the field. If you look in the back, there's this little one that's trying to get the courage up to be somebody spectacular. I love it. And I stopped in on this little beauty on my way home. I got to drive by her every single day. And this is the actual Madison River. Some of you might know of a series out called the Madison. Well, this is the actual river. See you tomorrow, friend. And that's a wrap for day 1 at Yellowstone.